Time to play the game. Time to play the game. It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control, and if you can take it, all about your shit, and if you can pay it, it's all about pay. Who's gonna make it? I am the game. You don't wanna play me. I am control. No way you can shake me. I am heavy debt. No way you can pay me. I am the pain, and I know you can't take me. Look over your shoulder, ready to run like a Cleveland bitch from a smoking gun. I am the game, and I make the rules. So move on out. You can die like a fool. Try to figure out what the move's gonna be. Come on over, sucker. Why don't you act me? Don't you forget there's a price you can pay. 'Cause I am the game and I want to play.
Wake up, you ain't heard the news. Thank you for joining me here live on the Fast Break Sports Hour here on YouTube. Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. Hope you guys had a great Labor Day weekend, a safe Labor Day weekend. Hope you guys ate a lot of food, maybe indulged in some adult drinks or whatnot. But hopefully you guys came out of it safe and in one piece. Told you guys had family reunion this weekend, and that was a success, man. It was fun. It was cool to see a lot of people that I don't usually see on a weekly basis. But at the end of the day, it's all love, So had a great time on the weekend. Again, hope you guys did as well. Hope it was safe. Again, thank you for joining me here live on the Fast Break Sports Hour. And a lot of things to cover, especially since I wasn't on over the weekend or even yesterday, as I got in a little bit later than what I thought. But with that being said, first things first, I Papa freaks all the honeys, dummies, Playboy bunnies, those wanting money. Sorry, I had to just get that in real quick. But big news over the weekend, the free agents, or not the free agents, but the big name players that were holding out that now either have new contracts or new contracts and a new team. A shocker. Khalil Mack traded over the weekend from the Oakland Raiders to the Chicago Bears, which then the Bears signed him to an extension. Man, 6 years, $141 million in totality. And it's the biggest contract in NFL history for a defensive player. And it was a couple days before that where Aaron Donald signed his big deal, where he was the highest paid defensive player in the history of the NFL just 2 days earlier. And Khalil Mack tops that. And Aaron Donald's deal came in at 6 years, $135 million, staying with the Rams, solidifying that defense, and high hopes, man. The Rams have high hopes. They have all their bases covered. They have a young quarterback. We'll see how he does in his second full year as a starter with the Rams. And back to Khalil Mack. Back to Khalil Mack and the Chicago Bears. The Bears, who had to give up 2 first-round picks. They also had to give up a third in 2020 and a sixth in 2019. The first-round picks are 1 in 19 and 1 in 20. But they also received, along with Khalil Mack, a second in 2020 and a fifth in 2020. So at the end of the day, you look at it for the Chicago Bears, it's a great move because you're getting a player who's going to fit in right with the defense. He's going to be the best player on a team. Not on the defense, he is the best player on a team now. And hopefully he can play up to the standards he was playing with up to in Oakland. And the pressure's going to be there for him. He's going to have to play, if not at the same level, a little bit higher. And with him being 27 years old, with that 6-year extension, the bigger question is, at what point does he start falling off of his prime? At what point is he getting paid too much based on what he produces on the field? You have him at 27. You can definitely see him still in his prime this year, next year at 28, the year after at 29. But once you hit 30, I still think he'll be, one of them top-notch edge rushers. But 31, 32, that's when the contract starts to end, starts to decline. And will his talents decline? I think that's a chance that they have to take. And what's up, Mom? That's a chance they have to take because it's time for them to move into that group where you expect to win. The Chicago Bears have been a cellar dweller for a long time. They've been at the bottom of that NFC North, and just being the little brother to the Green Bay Packers or the Minnesota Vikings, and even at some point the Detroit Lions. It's been a while since the Bears have been in the playoffs, not since Jay Cutler got them to the NFC Championship game. I believe that was back in 2012 where Aaron Rodgers was able to defeat them. So there's the Packers still. Aaron Rodgers defeats the Chicago Bears. 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. They were able to defeat the Chicago Bears in the NFC Championship game. And Aaron Rodgers got his first Super Bowl. Maybe it was 2010. It doesn't matter. It was more than 6 years ago when the Bears last made the playoffs. And now with Trubisky going into his second year, you have some weapons in the backfield with Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen. And then you brought in Allen Robinson. You drafted Anthony Miller. So will that be enough offensively? Because to me, the defense is going to be good. And you add Khalil Mack to that, it should be a top 10 defense at the worst. Worst case scenario, they should be a top 10 defense. And they got to be a team now that can be a playoff French team. And you have to be when you get a player of that magnitude. When you give up first round picks, that means you're giving up a big part of your future and saying not so much to win now, not to say their window's closing, but you're not going to have those first round picks in the next 2 years to kind of say, you know what, first rounders, you draft starters, hopefully Pro Bowlers. You're not going to have that. So now you're going to be drafting second round, third round, and you're going to have to hope you can hit on those later round draft picks. So a big move for the Bears. I think they had to do this move more so just to get things revved up in that division and just for themselves as the Chicago Bears and to help that defense to where Mitchell Trubisky doesn't have to do everything and they can just sit back and just pound the ball and go to the air game when necessary and not have to force it and try to. These games are going to be close now when you talk about the Chicago Bears. And we're going to see right off the bat with their week one opponent, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, Sunday Night Football. I was clowning this game when the schedule first came out. I was like, what are you guys doing? Why is the NFL putting the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football first week of the season? It was a little bit better than having the Cowboys there every single year, that first game of the season. But I was like, man, you can't have the Bears on Sunday Night Football. What is this? Nobody wants to watch that. That's going to be Aaron Rodgers all day, 45-17 type of thing. But now, man, with Khalil Mack, now you got some star power in that game. You got Khalil Mack going against Aaron Rodgers. Does Mitchell Trubisky take that next step? So Sunday Night Football wins when it comes to this deal. And you got to look at the Oakland Raiders now. Me personally, I already saw them as the worst team in the AFC West. I think John Gruden is, man, he's underwater. He's in over his head when it comes to just how football is nowadays. Not to say he's not a smart quarterback coach or a smart offensive guru or whatnot, whatever you want to call it. But times change. It was a long time that he's been out of the NFL. And then he signs a 10-year, $100 million deal with the Oakland Raiders. Soon to be Las Vegas Raiders, who, again, they didn't want to sign Khalil Mack. They got something out of it, so they got something to build the future. But just when I look at them this year and maybe next year, I just don't see it. I don't see where the Raiders can make an impact, especially in that division, because to me, the Chargers, the Denver Broncos improved. The Kansas City Chiefs, though, they lost Alex Smith, bringing in a younger, more mobile, better armed quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and they still have the weapons offensively. Defensively, the Chiefs are going to be iffy, but still, I think the Raiders are going to be in the basement when it comes to the AFC West, and especially more so now that they lost Khalil Mack. So are we gonna see teams put points up against the Raiders, maybe the Chiefs, but more so the Raiders. Are the Raiders going to be able to keep up defensively or offensively? Because the defense to me is going to start giving up a lot of points. I thought they were going to do that anyways, even with Khalil Mack. I just don't think they had enough on the defensive side. So now you just subtract that, and it's, man, like I like to say, the cupboard is bare. The cupboard is bare when you talk about the Oakland Raiders defense. And they also made a somewhat medium-sized move. It wasn't a small move or a big move, but they traded for A.J. McCarron, who signed that, somewhat big deal with the Buffalo Bills at $16 million. He's traded to Oakland for a fifth-round pick, and now he's going to be Derek Carr's backup. I don't know what the thinking is there. Is it more so, is Derek Carr fragile, and they want someone just to be there in case Derek Carr, gets knocked out of a game for a couple games or a handful of games? Or is Derek Carr overrated? And my belief is he's overrated for however you want to put that. I say overrated when it comes to people saying he's a top 10 quarterback or a quarterback that's going to be in the upper echelon. I don't see that. To me, overrated, he's more so, if I had to rank quarterbacks, he's in that 16 to 24, which isn't bad. Still pretty good. But to me, he'll never be a top 10 quarterback. I think he took a step back after that year he got hurt and missed the playoff game, the only playoffs that he's been able to lead his team to. And I just think, could the thinking here be, you know what? Derek Carr is not what we think he is. And maybe with A.J. McCarron there can either push him to get back to that certain level, or A.J. McCarron will, get some game time. That remains to be seen. I think that's pushing it a little bit. But I just don't think Derek Carr is the answer long term. I think he's always going to be middle of the pack quarterback. He might be the answer long term if you're looking for maybe a wild card, at the highest level. But I don't see him contending for any Super Bowls anytime soon. John Gruden not contending for Super Bowls anytime soon. So that was the big news of the weekend when it comes to the NFL. You also have Le'Veon Bell, who still hasn't shown up. There was some fake news that Le'Veon Bell put out there that was reported that he had said he was going to show up on Labor Day. Obviously, this is the final week of preparation before Week 1, which is Sunday, Thursday for the Falcons and the Philadelphia Eagles. But with the Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns on Sunday, it was reported that he was going to show up early in the week. Still hasn't shown up. Monday, Tuesday passed. Still nothing there. And all he has to do is show up by Friday to secure that $14.5 million franchise tender and pass the physical, which, all signs say he will pass the physical. So with more so looking at their running back depth, because even if he comes in, let's say tomorrow or Friday or sometime before Week 1, I don't think he's going to get the grunt of the load. He will possibly start in Week 2, but I think they're pretty confident in their backup running back, James Conner, who had a pretty good preseason, who had a pretty good rookie preseason last year. And I can see him getting at least half of the carries when it comes to the run game on Sunday. And if Le'Veon Bell's not there at all, James Conner's going to get a big workload. If Le'Veon Bell's there for Week 1, and for those of you that are in fantasy football that have Le'Veon Bell, hopefully you handcuff Le'Veon Bell with James Conner because you knew something like this was possible. And not just because of that, injuries, suspensions, and obviously what's going on right now. He hasn't came in. He doesn't want to play on that franchise tag. I think ultimately he will. But if you were smart enough, you would have drafted both of those running backs to cover your you-know-what. And if you look at it, personally, I believe that if they both play on Sunday, you're looking at a split. You're looking at maybe both running backs having 10, 11 carries. But if Le'Veon Bell's not there, I think James Conner's going to get a workload to where he can carry the ball 16 to 20 times. So that would be a good start. I like the Cleveland Browns defense, but still, when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and James Conner, he's a pretty decent sized back. I think you still go with that. He's not going to produce Le'Veon Bell type numbers because Le'Veon Bell is going to give it to you in the run game. Le'Veon Bell is going to give it to you in the passing game, and he can shock you with some big plays. So I would still, I wouldn't say James Conner is like a start over a player like a Leonard Fournette. No, you don't do that. If you have to choose between, let's say, him and who's another good? Let's say you have to choose between him and Adrian Peterson. I think you go James Conner over Adrian Peterson. But that's fantasy talk. That's for another show. But that's one thing to look at to see if Le'Veon Bell shows up. Antonio Brown said he's going to be good to go for week 1. I didn't see anything otherwise, but that's just a little small tidbit, small piece of news that also came out today. So look out for Le'Veon Bell, and when he actually comes in, I think as the week goes on, it's going to be less and less playing time. Not because he has to learn the playbook or nothing like that, but still he doesn't have any football. He doesn't have any football in him as far as practicing, as far as preseason, but just the action, just the moving. He's definitely going to be in tip-top shape. That's not the issue. But still, football speed is football speed, and you have to see it. You have to be there. You have to be a part of it. And maybe that only takes a half of football for him to get his feet wet and going like Le'Veon Bell does. But if you just look at last year, he showed up the last week, but he showed up on the Monday, which was the Labor Day before the week 1, and they played against the Browns, so it was the same opener, and the showing was just below average. He had 10 carries for 32 yards. So that's something to kind of measure this off of. If you're lucky enough to get him in there for a touchdown or whatnot, speaking of fantasy football, I think it's more so whatever's working for Pittsburgh week 1, they're going to keep it going. So just look out for that. Pittsburgh Steelers fans or just fantasy football, whatnot, check out for Le'Veon Bell. And man, wouldn't it be a story if he doesn't show up before week 1? He's going to lose close to $1 million if it's around 833,000 that he'll miss if he doesn't show up for week 1. And then you have to wonder then, what are the Steelers going to do? Do you have to trade the guy now? Do you try to get some value for someone who is losing out on money and who's obviously content with sitting out until he either gets a better contract or gets moved to another team? So that remains to be seen. Check that out for the rest of the week, Le'Veon Bell. And then just some other news. Sam Darnold, starting quarterback this week for week 1 for the New York Jets. Rookie quarterback from USC. We saw that coming, especially when Teddy Bridgewater got traded, especially with Sam Darnold getting the starts in all the preseason games. Also, Nathan Peterman. This was a little bit more of a shock to me. Nathan Peterman was announced the starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills for week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. I thought it was going to be Josh Allen all the way, the rookie quarterback from Wyoming, their first-round pick. I was thinking Josh Allen was going to be poised and ready, not so much with his, not the experience, but just because how they were playing him in the preseason, it looked like Peterman was going to be that safety net, that backup. And then once they traded McCarron, I'm like, okay, now it's definitely going to be Josh Allen. Nope. It's still going to be, they decided Nathan Peterman and Josh Allen's a backup, which if you ask me from the beginning, I think it's one of those things where it's a double-edged sword, because to me, at the end of the day, Josh Allen was or is not going to be one of those consistent quarterbacks, whether it's year 1 or year 7. I think he's going to be one of those up and down quarterbacks, where one game he might throw up some fabulous numbers, and then the next game he throws up a dud. I kind of see him in the mold as a Jay Cutler. That not so much the attitude. I've said before, the attitude is totally different. Josh Allen, when it comes to attitude, he's a great person. He's a hard worker, but just the play on the field is what's going to determine what people think about him. And I believe he's going to be one of those up and down players. But then if you don't play him and you go Nathan Peterman, then he's never going to get the in-game experience. So either way, if you have the Baltimore Ravens defense this week, you better start that defense. Whether it's Peterman, because he might throw you 4 interceptions in the first half like he did last year when he first came in, or if Josh Allen comes into the game, you're going to see some more mistakes there. So stack up on your Baltimore Ravens defense if you haven't done so already. And if you did, man, looking for you. You got You got easy pickings week 1 of the fantasy football season, if that's what you're looking towards. And if you're just a Baltimore Raven fan, you're licking your chops because this might be one of the easiest wins you're going to come across. And to me, that would be an upset if the Bills were able to either keep it close or beat the Baltimore Ravens. But yeah, it's not looking good for the Buffalo Bills after coming off that wild card showing last year with Tyrod Taylor. Totally different story this year. Looking like the Buffalo Bills are going to be at the bottom of the barrel. Shady McCoy is probably the only bright spot there, but when you don't have a quarterback that can complete passes, might be tough sledding for LaShawn McCoy as well. But that's another guy that's been reported is going to start. And then in the running back position, you got Royce Freeman, who was also announced yesterday, rookie running back from Oregon for the Denver Broncos, was reported he's going to be the number 1 running back. Devontae Booker, throughout the preseason, was on the depth chart as the number 1 running back. Royce Freeman, easily, a blind man could see. Ray Charles could have seen Royce Freeman being the starter at some point. It just comes week 1. Smart move for the Denver Broncos. And here we go. If you're the Denver Broncos, if you're a Denver Bronco fan, is your run game intact? Is the line going to be able to block for that run game and then create easy passes for Case Keenum? I think he's a level above, a couple levels above whatever they've had the last 2 years. So I think they're going to be fine all around, and just remains to be seen how long it takes for that team to just click offensively. Defensively, I'm pretty sure they're going to be a top 6 to 7 defense. It just goes from, are you going to be causing turnovers? You're going to create sacks? And I think offensively, last year the issues they had offensively brought some issues on the defensive side. So I think people forget that. People see that they were the 31st team in points per game given up by the defense. And that kind of skews the defensive stats, but that has to do a lot with the offensive production. This year will be slightly different. If the Denver Broncos can have somewhat of an average offense, which I think they'll be a good offense, not great, but a good offense, then they'll be much better defensively, and they'll be able to put pressure on the quarterback. And that's what they're going to do, keep games close and finish them off in the fourth quarter. But that's the news I have off the field when it comes to these players that have either got their extensions or have been named to their starting roles. Nick Foles, speaking of quarterbacks, also was announced he was going to start on Thursday. That was a few days ago. Not a shocker, because to me, it was getting to the point where is Carson Wentz going to miss a game, miss 2 games, miss 4 games, and how far along is Carson Wentz? When I look at Nick Foles, you ask yourself, what Nick Foles are you going to get? Will the real Nick Foles please stand up? Put your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. Which one are we going to get? And that's my stance a month ago on the Philadelphia Eagles. I had them flying high because I thought Carson Wentz was going to be ready before even the season started. And I'm not going to change my prediction. I'm not going to jump off of that. I had the Eagles winning the Super Bowl again this year. But man, if I look at it now, I think with Nick Foles, and I don't care about his preseason showing. I'm not going to take anything from that. Everything's basic when it comes to your offensive play calls and just reading defenses who are also maybe doing base defense. Are we really going to look into that so much? Yeah, he had a horrible outing against the Cleveland Browns. Preseason as a whole wasn't too good. But you look at what he did in the playoffs last year, and even just in the last 3 games, he played 3.5 games at the end of the season last year because of Carson Wentz's torn ACL. The 3.5 games weren't bad. Obviously, he's coming into a fill-in role. He was the backup quarterback. And with those 3.5 games, the completion percentage was about where he has been in the past couple years, especially when he was with the Rams, where he was just completing 57% passes, percentage of his passes. And that's what he was doing when he first came in. Now, once the playoffs started, the dude just skyrocketed. The numbers were out of this world. So he went from 56% when it comes to his completion percentage to the playoffs where he completed 72%. That's a big jump. It's not like going from 64 to 68 where it's like, okay, he played better. But this was, 56 to 72 is a big jump. And I mean, you even just look at the numbers in the 3.5 games that he played in the regular season, he threw for 537. He had 5 touchdowns and 2 picks. Again, threw for 56.4%. In the playoffs, that changed. In that playoffs, in 3 games, including a Super Bowl win over the New England Patriots, he had 971 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interceptions, again at 72.6% completion percentage, obviously. You look at the divisional game against the Atlanta Falcons, against the game that they're gonna show this Thursday against Matt Ryan. Obviously, he's not playing against Matt Ryan, but that's how they like to, that's how they do games. It's Matt Ryan versus Nick Foles. That's how it works. So in that game against the Falcons, he went 23 for 30 and threw for 246. No picks, no touchdowns. Pretty good game completion percentage wise. He got better in that championship game where they knocked the doors off Minnesota 38-7. 26 for 33, 352 passing yards, and 3 touchdowns. No picks. That's basically a perfect game. And then you look at the game against the New England Patriots. He went 28 for 43, 373, 3 touchdowns, and that 1 pick. So he was basically flawless when you look at his stats in the playoffs. And he was average in the regular season. And then if you take it back a couple years ago where he got some more playing time with the Rams, and I'm not going to take too much into it because of the talent that he had around him. But when you look at the games in 2015 with the Rams, his percentage was at 56.3. And in those 11 games, he threw for 2,052 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 10 picks. So you can see with the 7 touchdowns, there wasn't the talent there to, get those scores. And the 10 picks, not too bad in 11 games. It's roughly 1 turnover a game through the air. But the completion percentage is what I look at. So is he the quarterback that in the playoffs and with the Philadelphia Eagles many moons ago that's going to pass for 70%? Or is he the quarterback that's going to pass for 55, 56, 57%? I think that's the bigger question. And I think it all depends on the type of offense they're going to be running. But with that being said, the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Atlanta Falcons in this divisional playoff rematch, the Falcons are going to be coming in riding high. They're going to want to prove a point this game. I think the Eagles, there's a lot of questions, especially at quarterback. When is Carson Wentz going to come back? And when he comes back, how is he going to look? So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Nick Foles to continue to carry the Philadelphia Eagles with the passing game. Obviously, they still have Jay Ajayi. They got Corey Clement. Darren Sproles is still in the fold. No more LeGarrette Blount. No Alshon Jeffrey for this first game. You're going to have Aguilar there. You got Mike Wallace. So you got Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz is going to have a big game. That's the safety blanket there for Nick Foles. So I still look for Zach Ertz to have a big game. Depending on how the Falcons key on these running backs, it might be tough sledding for all 3 of these. You can see these guys just split 3 ways. Jay Ajayi is going to get most of the playing time. I think he has the best chance to put up the most stats, I guess, fantasy points, if we're talking about that. But I think it's going to be a tough game for Nick Foles with Matt Ryan, with Devontae Freeman, with Tevin Coleman, with Julio Jones, with Calvin Ridley, and that offensive line. I think it's going to be tough for the Eagles to keep up with the Falcons. I may be wrong, but here's a shocker. I have the Atlanta Falcons in somewhat of an upset over the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm looking at the Atlanta Falcons 27 and the Eagles 20 in this opening game. So that's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be fun to see. Man, football is kicking off in 2 days. In exactly 2 days, maybe 2 days and a couple hours. But, man, it's here. The NFL season is here, man. You guys got to crack one open for that. Whether it's a Coca-Cola or if it's a Sam Adams, or for those of you that are weak and drink Bud Light or any kind of light. No, I'm just playing. hey, whatever you do, you do. It's whatever. Wine drinkers or shots, whatever you do it with all your heart and your passion. But the NFL season's here. Once Thursday kicks off, it's nonstop. This season will not stop. Before you know it, it's going to be week 13, and you're going to be like, man, where's my team at? What does my team got to do to get into the playoffs? Or how many games do I have to win in the last 4 weeks of the season to solidify my number one spot? And I'm speaking NFL. I'm not talking about fantasy football. I'm talking about your favorite team. It's here. It's here. So it's time to sit back, lock in your seatbelts and whatever chair you like to sit in, put another notch in your belt because we're going to eat more. That's a fact. That's not a question. When football season starts, we eat more. We eat more on Thursdays. If you watch college football, Saturdays, Sundays, Mondays. It's here, guys. So I hope you guys did all your cardio during the summer because there is no amount of cardio that is going to save your waistline from here on out. Football season's here, full force. Atlanta Falcons at the Philadelphia Eagles. And just fantasy-wise, if you ask for my opinion, I think on the Eagles side, you definitely have to start Zach Ertz. Man, if your running backs aren't that good and you do have a Jay Ajayi, or let's say you have Jay Ajayi and Corey Clement, you obviously got to go Jay Ajayi. I think Jay Ajayi is going to have the best game when you look at the three running backs, but I don't see Jay Ajayi getting the 100 yards or the 2 or 3 touchdowns. So what you're hoping for Jay Ajayi is to get that one touchdown. Hopefully he gets to 60, 70 yards and then gets a couple catches out the backfield. That's going to be your best case scenario. And if you have to put a receiver in, I'm going Nelson Aguilar all the way because though he's also a deep threat, he's pretty good in the middle parts of the field, them little dig routes, 6 yards, 7 yards, possession receiver type play. But if you have other options, do not put those guys in. Zach Ertz all the way, easy money. You got to do Zach Ertz. Nick Foles, man, depending on who you have, that's a tough one for me. Again, so let me compare. If you have a Nick Foles and a Marcus Mariota, I'm going Mariota all day. If you have Nick Foles and Case Keenum, I'm going Case Keenum all the way. If you have a Nick Foles and a Mitchell Trubisky, you better flip a coin. Hey, you better hope your other players are good because it's going to be tough sledding. On the Falcons side, man, you definitely, obviously, I don't got to say to start Julio Jones. You go Devontae Freeman. Matt Ryan, again, that's another one. If you have Matt Ryan or Mariota, I'll go Matt Ryan over Mariota. But I wouldn't go Matt Ryan over a Jared Goff. I wouldn't do Matt Ryan over Aaron Rodgers. Matt Ryan over Tom Brady. I wouldn't do Matt Ryan over Deshaun Watson. So he's probably in the top half when you look at quarterbacks. But, man, it's just one of those things where both defenses can stop the other offense at any point because they both have talent on the defensive side. The Eagles have a little bit more depth than the Falcons do on the defensive side. But when I look at Matt Ryan and Nick Foles, though was proven wrong in the divisional, not proven wrong because I didn't say who was going to win, but just when we talk about it now, when you look at Nick Foles and Matt Ryan in that divisional game, Nick Foles got the better of Matt Ryan when you just look at the stats. But totally different game. It's easier to get a good team at home early on in the season, and I think the Falcons are going to be primed for that. So yeah, do what you got to do. I don't start any of these defenses when you look at fantasy football. So yeah, I mean it remains to be seen. I can be totally wrong. It is what it is. I'm not God. I don't know what's gonna happen. That's my opinion. But with that being said, I got the Falcons 27, the Eagles 20. Obviously, there's some touchdowns in there. Figure out who gets them, and there you go. With that, tomorrow and Friday, we'll talk some more NFL. We'll definitely talk about the Week 1 matchups on Sunday and Monday. Full force. coming at it. And with all that being said, we got to move over to the Major League Baseball thing. And it's a big thing. And every day that I'm on this show, I say the same damn thing. Major League Baseball playoff race in full effect. It's incredible. It's wonderful. It's up and down every single day. So this is the thing that you have to be watching now, especially if you have a team in the race. Doesn't get more exciting, more nerve-wracking than this. And the things keep changing. It went from, when you just look at the NL side, so let's look at that. Let's look at the National League. You look at the teams that still solidify their spots. The Chicago Cubs, who lost to the Brewers yesterday, and the Brewers can kind of bring the Cubs down if they continue to play this way. The Brewers have been on somewhat of a tear lately, and I'm talking about the last 4 or 5 days, nothing more than that, because they were kind of average before that. But when you look at the Cubs and you look at the Braves in the Central and in the East, respectively, they're pretty much set there. Now, the teams that are below them have games against them. So the teams that are below them hold their own destiny. You look at the Phillies, who are below the Braves. Right now, they're 4 games below the Braves, and they've been 4 games below the Braves for like the past week or so. And if you look at both of these teams, they've both been struggling. The Braves are 4-6 in their last 10. The Phillies had a chance to make some ground. They're 3-7. So they've actually lost a game, and you can't be going 3-7 in the last 10 when you're in a playoff race. And there's another team that went 3-7 in the last 10, and I'll talk about them in a little bit. But when you look at the Phillies and Braves, they still got 7 games. I mentioned before, they got 2 series together facing one another. So they got 4 in Atlanta. I'm not speaking about the Phillies, and then 3 will be in Philadelphia. So the Phillies control whether or not they get into the playoffs by simply, if they're able to, not simply, but for any realistic chances of the Phillies getting that NL East crown, they're going to have to get 5 out of 7 in totality when you look at the 7 games they have. Again, 4 in Atlanta, 3 in Philly. And if you look at Philadelphia and you look at the tough games left on their schedule, I mentioned no 7 against the Braves, and they also have 4 at Colorado the last week of the season. So that's going to be a tough one for them because the Rockies, for some odd reason, though they lose to the Padres once last week, are in first place in the NL West. They've been handling their business somewhat behind the scenes because everyone's talking about the Cardinals, the Dodgers, and why they're struggling or why they were struggling. The Diamondbacks, and man, they're on top of the NL West for some odd reason. And obviously the Cubs, they've been the team in the NL for the last 6-7 weeks. But with the Rockies now in first place, again, everything's just going back and forth. You had the Diamondbacks in first for all of last week, and then they beat the Dodgers in that first game on Thursday, and they had a 2-game lead, 1.5 over the Rockies. But then that just flipped when the Dodgers won the last 3 in dramatic fashion, all 3 games, and the Rockies just kept pace and kept winning and kept winning and kept winning. And they were right there, right behind the Dodgers, half a game. And then comes last night. They take care of business. The Diamondbacks don't take care of business and lose to the Padres. The Dodgers don't take care of business and lose to the Mets. These teams are teams that you should be beating. And the Rockies did that yesterday. They beat a team they were supposed to beat. And it's a division foe, but they still got the job done. So with that, the Rockies are now in first place in NL West. The Dodgers are half a game in the second spot. And the D-backs are now 1.5 games in the third spot. That's crazy to say because only 4 days ago, they were 2 games ahead of the Dodgers, 1.5 against the Rockies. That just flipped. And that could happen in 4 days. So that's why this is so interesting. The NL West is going to continue to do this little flip-flop thingy. And again, if you look at the Dodgers, in the last 10, they actually woke up. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They were able to sweep the Padres in a 3-game series. They swept the Rangers in a 2-game series, and they took 3 out of 4 against the Arizona Diamondbacks over the weekend. But then they lose to the New York Mets. You know, if you're a team, again, you're trying to get into these playoffs, even though you're 8-1 before last night's game, you cannot be losing to teams like the New York Mets. I know DeGrom's man, that dude's a horse. That dude's a stallion on the pitching mound. He's probably going to be the Cy Young winner. He's only 8-8, but that's because his team does not produce runs when he's on the mound. Sounds kind of like Clayton Kershaw-ish when you only get 1 run from your offense. But he's just, man, no decisions, but he's shutting the other teams down. He did it again yesterday against the LA Dodgers, who still, to me, are underachieving when it comes to the bats. Pitching's always going to be there, but when it comes to the bats, the Dodgers are underachieving heavily. Had some conversations over the weekend with some of the family members at the family reunion, talking about, on paper, they're the team, but, you know, again, even though they're 8-2, the bats have not been there. They're slightly getting by. You know, Dodgers are a team that should be scoring easily 5 to 7 runs a game. That should be the standard when it comes to the Dodgers. But no, you're getting a lot of these 2-run, 3-run games, and that's real. That's the way it's been for the last month or so, where it's 2 runs, 3 runs. Maybe they explode for 11, but then it's back to 1, 2, 3. Much prefer for them to stick around 5 or 6 runs as opposed to being on the low end and then having that one game where they explode. I don't like that, because you got to save some of them runs for the other games, but you can't do that. So again, that race is real tight. And if you look at that NOS, just look at the NOS and look at the games these teams have to go against. The D-backs have the most difficult remaining schedule out of all the teams in the National League. Not just in the race, but in the National League as a whole. If you look at the Diamondbacks, who again are in 3rd place in the West, 1.5 games behind the Colorado Rockies, they have 4 against Atlanta starting Thursday at home. Then they have a 4-game series at Colorado. That's going to be big. Then they have 3 at Houston. Now this isn't they don't have, it's not in order. Like they'll play against other teams in between, but this is just the big teams they play against and in that order. 3 at Houston Astros, the defending champions. Then they got 3 against the Cubs, and then they got 3 again at the end of the season versus the Rockies at home. So 4 at home against the Braves, who are somewhat struggling but still atop the NL East. 4 at the Rockies, who are on their high horse on top of the NL West. 3 at the Astros, who are defending champions and who will be the number 2 team in the AL. You have 3 against the Cubs, who are the best team in the National League right now, though they're playing kind of average right now. And then 3 against the Rockies at home. So that's tough sledding. And I didn't mention 3 more against the Dodgers. That's at home in the last week of the season. So, man, take that in for a Diamondback fan. I don't see any easy series here when you look at those. That's 6 tough series for the Diamondbacks. That's legitimately tough. These are all playoff teams that are either rolling or already in. You know, so you look at the Dodgers, they have somewhat of a tough schedule, not as bad as Arizona. They got 3 at Colorado this week. They have 4 at St. Louis next week. That's going to be a tough one because they got swept by St. Louis last week? No, about 2 weeks ago now. They got swept at home by St. Louis. That was the first time since 2012 that happened. But they're going to have 4 at St. Louis. Then they're going to have 3 at home against the Rockies again. And then they're going to end the season, the last week of the season, not the last 3 games, but the last week of the season at Arizona. So it's like we said, let's run through the Rockies real quick. The Rockies got 3 against the Dodgers at home. They have 4 against the Diamondbacks at home. They have 3 at Los Angeles, 3 at Arizona, and then 4 versus the Phillies at home. So when you look at it, the D-backs, to me, have the toughest. And then I think the Rockies and Dodgers is a toss-up. It's a legitimate toss-up. So it's going to be tough sledding. There's no way you can figure out the NL West, not even this week, not even, it's going to go down to the last week of the season. You're going to see all three of these teams, and maybe the Diamondbacks with a tougher schedule might fall back a little bit. But again, they control their destiny. Rockies control their destiny. The Dodgers control their destiny. Wouldn't be surprised if the last week of the season, all these teams are within 2 or 3 games from within each other. And that's where it heats up. It's already heated up. The Brewers and Cardinals in the NL Central, they're going to fight for one of those wild card spots, if not both. But you look at the Cardinals, right now they hold the second wild card. They got, again, 4 against LA at home, 3 at Atlanta, and then 3 versus Milwaukee, and then 3 at Chicago. Chicago's not going to hold off. They're not just going to take the foot off the gas and, pump the brakes on their season because, any 3 or 4 game losing streak could put the Brewers or Cardinals back into, reaching distance where they can touch you and be like, I'm right here, 1 game behind you. The Brewers, they got 5 games in totality versus the Cubs. They still got 2 games left in this series and then 3 more towards the end of the season. And they got 3 at St. Louis. The Brewers seem to have the easiest schedule when you look at all the wild card teams. And that's, that's saying a lot. 5 versus the Cubs, 3 at St. Louis, and that's it. They got games against the Reds, games against the Pirates, twice over. So they're the team that's going to have the easiest time on paper, standings wise, when it comes to them getting that wild card spot and possibly getting closer to the Cubs. At the end of the day, I don't see that. I think the Cubs will solidify themselves as the number 1 team in the National League, waiting for the wild card winner. That's where I have the Braves winning the East. I have the Cubs winning the Central. And now you got Rockies, Dodgers, D-backs, Brewers, Cardinals, Phillies. Those 6 teams fighting for 3 spots. The last NL West spot and then 2 wild cards. So here we go. It continues to ratchet up. It doesn't matter what happens today. Not much is going to change. Now, last week I had mentioned how the Phillies were kind of turning into that team like the Nationals where they were slowly falling off, and they continue to do so. So the Phillies have dropped. They were in the in the wild card standings. They were number 2 just 10 days ago. Now they're at the bottom of the wild card standings, other teams that are contending. So you look at the wild card standings, you got Milwaukee in the 1 spot, and you got the Cardinals in the 2 spot. So on the outside looking in, you got the Dodgers, who are 1 game behind the Cardinals for that 2nd spot. The D-backs, who are 2 games behind the Cardinals for that 2nd spot. And the Phillies, who are 3.5. So that's the team to watch. If these next 4 or 5 games, they go 2-3 or 1-4, you can start counting them out when it comes to the wild card. So, and that's going to make it a little bit slightly clearer as to who's going to be in the fight the last week or so. But either way, it's going to come down to the last week, whether it's the wild cards or whether it's the NL West. Those are the only things that are in question to this point. Again, American League, that's been figured out. I said it over 6 weeks ago. I gave you the 5 teams that were going to go. Same 5 teams are going to go. And again, Red Sox, Indians, Astros, Yankees, and Oakland A's. Those are your 5 teams in the playoffs in the American League. Nothing's going to change. You're going to have the Oakland Athletics go against the Yankees in a wild card. Winner will play the Red Sox. Indians will go against the Houston Astros. So not much has changed there. Again, things are getting crazy when it comes to baseball. And they will continue to get crazy. Today's games, you got St. Louis at Washington. That's coming up here shortly. Philadelphia at Miami. You got the Red Sox at Atlanta. So that's a chance for Philadelphia to gain some ground on Atlanta because you're playing the Marlins, Phillies. You got to get those wins. And with the Braves playing against the Red Sox, best team in baseball, and they're not playing so well, speaking of the Braves, you can see the Red Sox sweep that series. Gives the Phillies a chance, but the Phillies are not doing their part in beating these easy teams. Then you got the big series between the Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers took the first one yesterday. You got the Giants at the Rockies, where the Giants lost to the Rockies last night, where the Rockies were able to catapult themselves to that number 1 spot in the NL West. You got the Padres, who shocked the Diamondbacks, who didn't look like they wanted to play yesterday. They beat the Diamondbacks yesterday 6-1. They play tonight. And the New York Mets, who also did a little bit of shocking and beating the LA Dodgers, who had won 8 out of 9. and were in first place after winning 8 out of 9. And they were in first place for about a day. And now they're in second place because they lost to the Mets. They have their second game of the series coming up here shortly. Baseball, man, it's what more can I say? It's ratcheting up. Last thing I'm going to say, again, I don't like talking about these topics when it comes to sports and politics, but it's just something everyone's talking about, and I wanted to put my little 2 cents in it. And it's the whole Colin Kaepernick, Nike, just do it, whatever you want to call it, the marketing plan or whatever they're trying to do. But he's the new marketing plan for, what year is it? I don't even know what year it is. I think it's the 30th year for Nike and Just Do It. Something like that. I don't really care about those things. But Colin Kaepernick is the face of it, the Just Do It. The whole thing is about, being able to sacrifice your livelihood, what brings you, your income, and or the thing that you love to do, to take a stand for something you believe in. What up, man? Chewy up in Gallup, New Mexico. Safe trip to Chewy, my father, who is on his way up to New Mexico. I believe Farmington. He's going to be working out there for a little bit. Safe trip for you. Have fun out there and do your thing and cause ruckus and make people laugh and stuff like that. That's what my dad likes to do. But back to the Colin Kaepernick thing. So it's all based on continuing to believe in something. Now he's the face of the slogan, Just Do It, for this upcoming season, for Just Do It, for Nike, whatever it is. I don't have an issue with whatever his stance is. I believe whatever you want to do, that's your prerogative. I'm not for or against it. I'm neutral. I would much rather not have to talk about it during football games. Whether it's your decision to kneel or not, to me, it shouldn't even be brought up. I don't really care. I want to watch football. I don't want to talk about who didn't and who did the next day or just even during. To me, there's no place for any of it. Not so much no place for them kneeling, but to me, there's just no place to even just talk about it. It shouldn't be aired. It's football. We want to watch football. There's nothing more to it. I think the simplest way to handle it is to stop airing, because let's go back some years. They would never air the national anthem before a game on television unless it was maybe the opening game of the season, but then not until the AFC and NFC championship games and obviously the Super Bowl. But now it's a big thing, and almost every game airs the national anthem, which, if you want to solve this issue, stop airing the national anthem. Or if you're going to air the national anthem, don't put the camera on any of the players. Or just keep the players in the back until the national anthem is done. But that's besides what I'm trying to talk about here. The whole Colin Kaepernick thing, let me give you the real. And this is my opinion, and I don't care what anybody thinks, or else I wouldn't say anything. To say you're going to stand for something no matter what is a big pile of you-know-what when it comes from Colin Kaepernick. And let me tell you why. Because when asked last year, would you stop kneeling if a team signs you? What did he say? He says yes. He said yes. I will stop kneeling if I get a shot to play. What does that tell you? That the cause is not bigger than him wanting to play and make money. And he feels if the cause is that big, that needs to continue from here to the end of his life. The only reason why it's continuing now is because no team is willing to sign him. So that's why it seems like his stance or his decision has been full force and the same from the get. That's a big pile of you-know-what. And I don't have anything against Colin Kaepernick. But for people to think that this is a stance that he's going to continue to do because that's what he had in his heart. At the beginning, it was in his heart until he figured out, holy crap, I'm not going to be able to play football again. Oh, but if a team signs me, I'll stop doing this because I want to play football and make money. But once no one says they're going to make money or going to sign you so that you can't make money from the NFL. And mind you, he's been with Nike this whole time. He didn't just sign with Nike. He was with Nike the whole time. This was all planned up to a certain spot. So what it said, I don't know behind the scenes. I'm not Nike. I'm just telling y'all what I read. And so it is what it is. Believe what you want to believe. But do not tell me this is the stance that you're taking and this is what you believe for the rest of your life, and you're willing to make a stance when you're not willing to make a stance if you sign with a team. Because if a team doesn't want me to kneel, I won't do it anymore. No, I would say, yeah, I'm still going to do what I believe in because that has nothing to do with my play on the field. So it is what it is. I don't care what he does. I don't care what Nike does. Good for all of you. I don't, to me, it's all bull sugar. But yeah, don't tell me. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. When you say, if a team signs me, I'll stop doing it. Man, I called you on your bluff. That's some bull sugar. But that's all I got for you guys today. I had a lovely time talking about that. And I don't like talking about sports and politics. Like I said, I'm not going to be bringing stuff up like that. I really don't give a crap. Because sports is fun. Sports is something that, man, you talk to your friends about and you talk trash. Man, my team beat yours. Not, man, your team sucks because your dude was kneeling down and I'm a war veteran. That stuff does not belong in sports. None of it. Positive or negative. This is sports. This is fun. But that's all I got to say. That was fun. So with that being said, thank you for joining me here on the Fast Break Sports Hour. Hope you guys have a lovely week. I hope you guys enjoy your baseball games tonight. Hope you guys are getting ready for Thursday night football. Y'all better have all them things ready when it comes to food and, man, appetizers and all that good stuff and your drinks. Be ready today. Don't be doing the last minute thing on Thursday because you got to be sit down ready, full for the game. Here we go. NFL season, baseball, playoff races in full effect. Fast Break Sports Hour. I'm out.
You're gonna be the same. You're gonna change your name. You're gonna die in flames. Time to play the game.
You hear that, NFL? Time to play the game. Nothing else.